Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Y'all know how we do. Y'all know how we do. So I ain't gonna play with y'all today. We got a lot of shit to cover. So go ahead and tag your friends, your sisters, your brothers, your mothers, and your boyfriends and your honeys and your side pieces, so that you can watch this nice episode. So tag all of them. I don't care. Just tag them. Get them here. Watch together. Create a watch party. Have your side pieces watching on the watch party. I love it. I love it. Is it on? It's a lot of quiet and silence in the background. Is this bitch on? Is it on? Is it on? Oh my god, ain't nobody talking. Is it on? All right.
I think we good. I think we live.
I feel like we okay. I feel like I'm talking to myself. I don't know what's going on. That's the problem.
Okay.
So welcome to Keeping It 100. This is Rain Outreach Team coming to you live in color. Shout out to T.S. Madison. Shout out to T.S. Madison. What's her name? Tammy Rowland and all the greats that came before us. We appreciate you guys. And thank you for allowing me to use some of your content. I appreciate you. So before we get started today, I have a couple of different news I want to share with you guys. We're not going to do a hot topic segment today, only because we have a beautiful soul that's going to be joining us in a second regarding Sexplanation. And I know that you all have watched it because we've been giving out free tickets all week. So I know that you guys watched it. I'm not even going to ask you. So before we get started with that, though, I do want to let you know some of the changes that are going to be happening within the next couple of weeks and regarding Keeping It 100. Keeping It 100 starting in July next week, we'll be moving to twice a month only. Same time, same day, Thursday, 6:30, but it'll be every other week. So be looking out for that change. And some of the styling is going to be a little bit different as well. We're going to have a lot of more featured guests on. Because we're gonna have more time to plan out different things and scenarios and conversations with to bring to you guys and more content. So be looking out for that as well. If you have any questions regarding that or have any ideas that you would like to share that will enhance us, please feel free to message one of us so that we can write it down and get it popping in one of our discussion sessions that we have. So please feel free to do that. I'm going to let them introduce themselves one last time as a whole, because this is the whole outreach team, if I'm not mistaken. We're missing one person, Bryce, but he's on vacation. But I'm going to let them, first of all, introduce themselves one last time as a whole and say something that you're thankful for.
Who you want to start?
It don't matter. Just take it away.
I'll take it away if you want me to start. Everybody already knows it's me, Sean, your favorite peer outreach specialist here with RAIN and also with CREW. CREW stands for Community Resource Empowerment Wellness. I specialize in substance use as it relates to harm reduction. So anyone struggling with any type of mental health, substance use, or substance abuse, please get them in contact with me. My number is below. I'll also provide my email later if you need.
Tell me something that you're grateful for.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for this opportunity I just had not so long ago to host for Big Frida. I was thankful for that. That was a good enough gift for me this past couple months that made me smile. So,
well, I'll go next. I'm Justice. I am the peer attention specialist at RAIN. I work with the youth, so I'm also the youth navigator as well. I work with 13 to 24-year-olds. And help them navigate their care successfully. My number is below. Something I'm thankful for. Oh, I forgot to mention, as the peer attention specialist, I also help those who are new to care and those who have been out of care for at least 6 months. Something I am grateful for, thankful for. I'm grateful for RAIN for just providing opportunities for me to grow constantly. And I'm thankful for my voice. And yeah, I ain't gonna get too deep to that, but you know, y'all know I sang, so got to be thankful for that. So that's me.
Okay, I'll go next. Oh, you got it, TQ.
What's up, y'all? My name is TQ. I am the peer attention specialist. My role is to seek individuals that's been out of care 6 months or more and or newly diagnosed. And things that I'm thankful for are just finding new opportunities to grow in life, and also thankful for my life, health, and strength.
Yes. Hey, girl. Uh-oh.
Yes, I'm Denise. I'm pure bilingual specialist with Rain. I'm thankful for that. Thankful for the opportunity of working with each one of you guys, and for again being able to be part of the community and Rain now as a whole.
We love you too, girl.
Thank you.
And last but not least, and Jesse.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Elkins. My pronouns are he and or they, she, really all. I am the research coordinator at RAIN along with Bryce Curry. There's my number below. But this is my last week, and I think perhaps my last keeping it 100 as a RAIN staff member. But anyway, we have 3 research studies going on, 2 for folks living with HIV, 1 for folks who are not living with HIV and who are also not taking PrEP. So if you're interested, you can look on our website and take the screeners. I'm grateful for 2 things. One is my transition to running Full Sun Fitness as a personal trainer and movement expert. So if you're looking for a trainer, look me up. And I'm also incredibly grateful for our special guest today, Alex.
Thank you so much. And before we bring Alex on the screen, I just wanted to say, you're hearing titles like specialist, you're hearing titles retention specialist, you're hearing titles like peer outreach specialist, but I'm going to call these people what they are. They are case managers. We are diving into people's lives every single day, helping them to navigate the social aspects of living with or without HIV. I'm helping them understand the healthcare continuum. And so I think that sometimes, you know, you get lost in titles and what that means, what they look like, and what they are, things like that. But all of these people that you're seeing in front of me do some type of social work, and manage a caseload and a workload and things like that. And they operate the same way as a case manager operates. So put some respect on their name first and foremost. They're not just an outreach team, but they also are managing clients and linking them to clients and help them navigate what it means to be HIV positive and what it means to be on PrEP. So I just want to put that out there, and say how much I appreciate them and all that you guys do, all you think you do for me to help to support me. I appreciate all of you in so many different ways. So thank you. So enough for the puppy dog tears moment, the cheesy bullshit. Let's get this man on the line. Before we get him on the line, I do want to show you a little small clip or a trailer of what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. We can't hear.
How do you define an orgasm?
Define that for me, sexual being. How do you define sex?
Hi, I'm Alex. America raised me to be ignorant about sex.
The vulva? I think that's what that is.
It's not the vulva.
Vagina majoris. Vagina minoris.
Not quite.
No?
Did you ever think you had to have a sex talk with the kids?
How's that?
Dad should do it.
We don't wait for people to say, I'm ready for algebra. We introduce that when they're developmentally ready to take on algebra. Ovaries.
The cervix.
Fun erection.
Clitoris. But in America, comprehensive sex ed still meets a lot of resistance.
They should stay out of sex. That belongs to the family.
But if you, your parents, and their parents never learned to talk about sex, how do you learn to talk about sex? So, at 36 years old, I'm finally going to confront my fears head on.
For the prostate stimulation, put it in deeper.
You're probably wondering why I came to you.
Yes, I was wondering, Alex.
I do have a lot of sexual thoughts that I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I think it's time to start asking some questions. For starters, what the America?
There's probably going to be poop.
So without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring Mr. Man on the line. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. This means a lot.
Okay, so first and foremost, before we dive into the conversation, can we get a more detailed description on who are you?
How deep do you want me to get? So my background's as a science and health reporter, journalist, and I was doing a lot of health policy reporting, a lot during the Obamacare kind of bad battles. That's kind of where I cut my teeth. But for most of my life, I've kind of harbored this kind of deep, really rage against how much suffering I went through during my coming out process. How things could have been so much better, knowing that my parents had no real problem with me being gay, but made me so terrified because we never talked about sex. And just, the decade I probably lost just in terror and depression, anxiety. And so when I started to do some research around, why is this? Why don't people in schools just simply say that same-sex relationships exist, totally normal, totally typical? Why, these facts that to me are not, they might be controversial, but they're the truth. Why is that so difficult to talk about in schools? And it quickly becomes apparent because, especially in the 90s and 2000s, not so much now. But all this curricula, everything you're taught in schools, at least in public schools, is decided by an elected school board, right? So we're talking about politics now. And the second a politician, like a school board member, says, maybe we should think about comprehensive sex ed, it becomes a lightning rod, right? So it becomes so scary to even talk about this. Like, no one is going to campaign on the platform of like, we need to be talking about anal sex in schools, right? That is blowjobs happen all the time and they feel amazing, right? No school board member is going to go take a risk, go on a limb on that, even though these are questions and ideas and things that a lot of kids are really struggling with and grappling with. And really, when I was 13, all I could think about was, how does a penis go into an anus? How does this work? That was probably the top concern I had, but no one is helping me, right? So I thought, well, why? So what can we do? And I have this science background. My instinct was to just look at the research, and it becomes even more depressing when you realize all the curricula is there. All the educators have developed the curricula for decades, from the 80s. The good, solid, comprehensive sex ed that can answer these questions in a non-biased, non-judgmental, non-values-based, just simply talking about facts. But it's not there. So I thought, if no one is doing it and it's too hard politically, although things are changing quickly, which is good to hear, why don't I try to do that? And so my kind of, my hope was that by divulging my own shames, desires, fantasies that I've never really voiced to anyone, to kind of the premier sex educators, researchers in the US and Canada, what could I get out of that? And the end product is the film.
So this film, first and foremost, is a game changer. I would like to say that. I think that the conversation that you had with all of those people was not so high level that it went over heads. I felt like I've had people come to me and say they was able to watch it with their kids.
Oh, that's great.
And that to me is the conversation starter. Things like that. So that allowed them to have that conversation and go into that. And So films like this, I think that even when you guys, I think there was a segment where you had the kids and the parents in there together, and they were talking about sex and sexual experience, things like that, and whatever. I thought that was a cool idea because, again, we're just trying to create that dynamic that it's okay to have these conversations, and
Totally. Yeah, and I going to those classes, so what Johnny's talking about is going to these courses where it's 10, 11, 12-year-old kids who have not yet gone through puberty or just starting puberty, go with a trusted adult figure in their life, and they learn all the things, like all the basic things. And I just remember being very tense at the beginning because the idea of like talking about masturbation that young to me felt very, very kind of, I don't know, I just had no experience around that. But soon you realize these kids are already thinking about it. They're already having these conversations among their peer groups. And so that's not the best place to get the sex ed, and the parent should be there. That's the role of the parent to instill values. As much as I disagree with this statement, but if the family value is that masturbation is bad, that's one thing. But at least we should have a discussion that many people masturbate. Most people masturbate. It is a thing that is done all the time, and starting from that fact, then you can talk about values, which is a great way to kind of think about what sex ed could look like in a way that maybe even some of more conservatives, brothers and sisters, might actually be willing to go through.
Alex, I completely agree, and thank you for making this beautiful film. The second that Johnny forwarded our connection with you, I sent it to my partner and my 12-year-old stepdaughter, and they watched it together and just had like the best conversation around it.
That means so much to us because that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, and usually I'm the one that creates the space, and I tell her that she can come to me and talk about whatever she wants. But having this tool to give to my partner, who is from Romania and not really as well versed in these conversations, he was able to use it as a tool and create a deeper kind of level conversation with her. So
that means so much. I mean, the best feedback we've been getting is couples who've been together for decades watching the film and having conversations they've never had before about their past, about their present. That just blows my mind that's happening. And it's the feedback has been more than we could have ever imagined.
There was one portion that I really love, because anytime people think about sex or the sex talk, it's typically surrounding sexual intercourse. But there was one lady that you were speaking with, and she was talking about the introduction of the introduction of sex in the conversation, and how that could include how to properly wash yourself, how to touch yourself. That can include, looking at genitals and things like that. It don't have to necessarily be around sex, but all of what it encompasses, the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit, and you this film really touched on that in so many different ways, in different places that you went. First of all, you traveled a lot of places, first and foremost. So what was that experience like? Just to travel alone, what was that like?
I mean, it was phenomenal. I live in San Francisco, which is its own bubble. If anything, in San Francisco, I'm fighting the opposite battle, where I have to say, I'm just not into fisting. I'm just not into fisting. It's okay. I've come around to the fact that I'm not into that, right? But going to places like Salt Lake City, Bloomington, Indiana, some of these places with a more conservative kind of outlook, but finding the little pockets of people who are changing those communities was great. And I've come around a long way, I think. I think before this movie, I had so much anger at what I would call, the political right or cultural conservatives. I put so much blame and just rage against them for, making my life, a hell for so long. But I soon came to, when I what I really learned going there is so much of the world that I want to see when it comes to our sexual values is not about me telling you what's right or what's wrong. It's about me listening to other people, hearing their experience, validating that experience, and just going from there. The more I can learn and listen and kind of like you're saying, Jesse, be that space for people to feel like they're heard and there's no judgment around how they think about sex and sexuality because it's so individual, has been a great learning experience. in terms of, if I want that respect, I have to be willing to give it as well. So that's been a great learning experience, talking to just so many different people and hearing and realizing quickly that, the only thing that is normal and typical is that we're all different. And that's been great. Yeah.
Alex, I do have to say that I just moved here from Bloomington, Indiana a couple years ago, and I know Dr. Yarber.
Oh, great. He's great.
And I would say that Bloomington's pretty sexually liberated. So
I mean, the gay bar there was, I think it's the back door, or was that?
Yeah, I worked there for 4 years.
Bloomington, we had a blast in Bloomington for sure.
That's wild.
After watching your film or after you directing and being a part of your film, do we now have a defining definition of sex or sexual intercourse?
It's changing for me. Slowly, incrementally, every day, I think more, and by changing, I mean it's expanding. I think we think of sexual intercourse as maybe one end of a spectrum, but the other end, I'm still thinking about. It's maybe a cop-out, but broadly speaking, I think it's just pleasurable, intimate human connection, whatever that is. A pat on the back, a compliment, how you look that day, how you sound that day, how you made someone feel that day. Just these moments where you feel actually seen, and whatever that looks like, whatever fleeting moment or second that looks like, and you actually, there's a give and take there of pleasurable love, and I think that can take many different forms. It can look very different, but ultimately that's all we're all seeking. And sex is one path. Sexual intercourse is one pathway to that, but there are so many other pathways to that. And I would say there are conversations I've had where I felt more sexually connected to someone than being fully penetrated by someone. So I think my conception of good sex, especially, has changed dramatically, and it's something that's kind of exciting for me now to kind of think about what does that mean, and how do I actually think about a healthy sex life? Because before I might have thought about healthy sex being like, am I getting enough intercourse and does it feel good? But now it's just so much more about the people and connections I'm making.
Alex, there was a character, I can't remember her name, but when I talk to Johnny about the film, I keep calling her kind of the fairy godmother. She's kind of I don't know, she just seemed to say all the right things, but she talked about sex in a way in which it was in the way we walk and the clothes we wear and how we speak. And I just found that so expansive and different. And now I'm looking at these flowers in front of me and I'm like, maybe there's like a sexual vibe happening or something, it can live in so many ways. And it was beautiful.
I'm interested to hearing what the collective have to say about after watching the film, if they can define sex or sexual intercourse, or if their views changed around it. TQ, Denise, and Sean and Justice, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I mean, after watching it, my views, I would say, didn't really change. It kind of like opened my eyes to a lot. I did like how you kind of like touched on like all the different aspects that create our definition of sex, whether that be what we learn in school, what we learn from our family, or what we learn from, religion.
Right.
And I thought it was, really cool that you could have conversations with a priest, and about sex. So I guess my question to you was like, how did that feel, like going into those kind of potentially uncomfortable situations, like with the Republican and the priest? Like, how did that feel for you?
My strategy kind of going in, I think, like I said, I learned very quickly, it's to give them the space to feel heard, right? So being clear about where my stance was, but not necessarily saying that they were wrong or evil or something I might have said 10 years ago. But yeah, I mean, it was totally terrifying. You don't know what they're going to say, how they're framed. People's public facing are different when they're, especially for politicians, than when they're one-on-one. But I think for the most part, most people, I was pleasantly surprised with their answers, that I think if you can get in a space of real dialogue, you can learn something from anyone. So that's what I really, really kind of stuck with me.
I was pleasantly surprised to hear how he described sexual intercourse and how me and you talking can be a sexual intercourse. I think that was probably one of the parts where I was really like blown away, like, whoa, mind is completely blown that he preaches saying
Oh yeah,
that. So,
everyone in the room afterwards too. Yeah, he's rare. He's rare for a Catholic priest. He's trying his best. He's fighting the good
Yes,
fight.
he is.
yes.
And I really did enjoy, Alex, the scene that you had with your parents in which you were so open and were able to talk to them and express yourself. I was just telling Johnny earlier that in many cultures that cannot be achieved. Unfortunately, sometimes you can sit down and talk openly, but it's a goal that we all have to be able to express ourselves. I know with my own kids, I'm very expressive about whatever they are doing, and they just general talk about sex. Also, I like how you're open and when you highlighted that in the United States, that's one of the topics that in school is not really discussed. And it is from the point of education that really we should try to address this. Hopefully at this point, we would allow children to be better prepared and not just receive that information late in life.
Right.
Yeah, I think, first of all, my parents, that was probably the most terrifying interview to go into, to talk about sex openly with my parents for the first time. And again, pleasantly surprised, I was like, oh yeah, like, of course they're full-fledged sexual beings and have thoughts and feelings and opinions about this. And I'm just so grateful that they really synced down with me and be so open and warm and loving. But I do think it is very specific to my family. My parents are my parents and others are different. My one maybe thought there is, you might not ever talk about, your sex life, their sex life, sex in general. But I think I'm curious. I don't know if this is good advice, but if we can start to just make the tiniest little baby steps you can, talk. That's kind of why I made the movie, right? Or if there's something in the news or TV or whatever it is that has a tiny sexual component, to maybe broach that, tiny baby steps. And then it's kind of like coming out of the closet. My dad didn't take it so great at the beginning, but the more and more I talked about it, the more and more we saw, it kind of opened things up. That's one thing that I'm curious if I'm hopeful that maybe that could be something that we can all do, that to talk about sex, even if it's not about your own sex life. I think for sure in schools and teaching as early as possible, I think I'm surprised constantly still just how early, that it's almost never early enough to start broaching these subjects. Age appropriate, of course, but babies from a young age are reaching for their genitals because it feels good. So I think you need to realize that we're, from conception to death, we're sexual beings. And we might not like that, but it's the truth. So how are we going to deal with it? And that's something we all should think about. Yeah.
So it was a scene on there that I enjoyed. The part where you had the adults actually labeling and saying body parts that a lot of them that were really grown did not know. That really intrigued me, because even though I was in in middle school, we were doing the whole, sex education class, I was actually challenging myself when I was looking at the pictures, and I'm like, I know what some of these parts are. I know what my parts are on my body. Just going into it, knowing that it's so good to know about your own body and the reproductive system and how that all works when it comes to sex. I think that is a very big thing that we also need to kind of pick up on, because even when Johnny was saying earlier, the different components about sex, not just, us, the intercourse part, so even as adults, I think now we still need to continue to educate ourselves on certain manners that we may not know.
Yeah, I didn't know the difference between a vulva and a vagina until starting this movie, which is, I feel awful about. And just hearing, and reading the research and listening to people like Dr. Yarber talk about how the word clitoris, probably many women don't hear that until well past puberty.
Right.
So that's something I think you can just, again, starting small, clitorises exist. So just saying the word out loud is a little step we can all take.
Right.
So, sorry, I was doing some background work in the background, making sure people got their tickets to watch the film. Yeah, she got it. Okay, perfect. So one of the things that that everybody was asking is what happened in that machine that you were in?
You mean when
What
I
was
jacked up in an MRI machine?
Yes.
That maybe. Yeah.
What was that experience?
So I tell people that kind of it was the least erotic experience I've had in my life, mainly because it's just so technical. You know, you're sticking things up your urethra. It's like very like yeah, because and there's no visual stimulus because they really just want to make sure they're getting the brain reading only of the physical stimulus. So and I will say my one note to them was they should probably provide silicone lube and not water-based lube because it dries out so quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, but it was definitely a big step for me to jerk off on camera in front of people, making people literally measuring my every body part.
Welcome to OnlyFans.
Yeah. and it's it's interesting for me to think about how this one act. I get it; it's a private act. You know, I'm not saying everyone should do it in public, but I'm saying I've always think about, well, two things. One, it's so crazy that we don't have a definition of what an orgasm is, that we don't even understand on a basic level what an orgasm is, considering just how amazing an orgasm is and how like life-changing and brain-changing and how much of our behaviors are based on chasing an orgasm. And then secondly, just like how difficult it is for him to get money for this. You know, he doesn't use the word masturbation. He doesn't even use the word pleasure to get this money. He's just talking about nerves and pain because, frankly, for whatever reason, you know, America, Western society, most cultures are still very wary and kind of skeptical about the importance of pleasure in our lives, which is a shame because I think, at least in my view, at this current moment, my vision for the world is how do we expand as much pleasure as humanly possible while minimizing risks and keeping us healthy. If you can donate an orgasm to science, I suggest you do because understanding pleasure is something I think we all can benefit from.
I love it. If you can donate an orgasm, not an organ, an orgasm to science.
I'm down for it.
I'm down for it.
I'm down for it.
Okay. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but my team know how I am. So I wanted to where did it go? Oh, so I wanted to say something earlier with what Denise was talking about some cultures cultures or social backgrounds may not be as accepting as this conversation with their parents or their household. And I want to say to that, like, in some way, shape, or form, I do feel like that is true. But I also feel like this new generation, what is it, Generation Z, is a lot more sexually liberated than we have ever been in the past. First and foremost. And I think that this film came at the exact right time because a lot of times Generation Z are getting information, and some of that stuff be right, some of that stuff be wrong, but they are getting this information and they don't know how to. It's still an awkward conversation that they have with their parents. And nowadays, our parents are young parents, things like that. Now, you know, my mom is not that much older than I am, and so these conversations can be less awkward and less weird. But because this is my mom, it's still an awkward moment. However, I know that like she's still having sex. My mom is still having sex, right? So, you know, what is the thing with us talking about things like that together, or like, you know, or like when you asked your mom, did you know I jack off when I was a kid? Like, and she was like, yeah, like I knew, but I just didn't say nothing. You know? And so when that came up, Oh, so whenever
I'm sorry, Johnny, continue. I was talking.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Denise.
Oh, no, I was talking about the culture aspect of it when we were having that conversation. It had more to do, like, for instance, with Latin America and the whole culture of Catholic Church, and have Alex had that conversation with the priest, but yet your priest was incredibly supportive and also positive. But we don't have that in Latin America. What we have in Latin America is still a really 20th century mentality in which sex is not discussed at all, and mostly Catholic Church. So, with that said, the same situation that takes place here in the United States, a developed country in which there's a high rate of teenage pregnancy, takes the same place in Latin America, but in a larger way. There's no discussion of abortions. All of these things are still, to this day, taboo. Just topics that we don't have. So for me to see the film and be able to share it with my entire family was just absolutely great. Because, I mean, and the funny thing is, my kids told me the same thing. They told me, you did not share this conversation in this, I didn't set it up in this frame of having a real conversation about this is what's going to take place. I just know they were going to have sex, and once they had it, it was okay as long as they took care of themselves and they protect themselves. And that was it. It was not a real, let's sit down and have this real sex conversation. Now we are able to have it. But it took me being in the United States and then being raised here, which this is more of a liberating environment and country.
I'm
I just wanted
27
to share that with you guys.
and my mom is like super religious. So like to see you like be bold enough to have that like to me that was bold, and I commend you for that, because I was telling them earlier, like I can never do that. Like and Sean posed the question like, well, if you could, and if you could, like who would you do it with first? Easily my mom. And I find that so weird, because I guess the relationship with my mom, like it's good, but it's we still don't, it's still taboo in my community, and it's basically like don't have sex, or you'll get pregnant, or you'll get a STD, or you'll die. It's kind of like to instill fear. So for me, like there was a portion where the lady was saying like, you tell someone not to do something, it's natural that they're going to want to do it more. And that was me. Like sex was never discussed growing up. So it was like when I got to experience it on my own, like out of my own curiosity, it's like, oh, okay, I want to do this all the time, like with everybody. And there was no education behind it. There was no like, be safe, or this might happen. It was just Russian roulette. Like I'm playing with fire at this point. So to see you be able to have that conversation and have this platform to provide a conversation starter, I think for future generations this is definitely going to be beneficial, because watching this film, I probably still wouldn't have that conversation with my mom, but I would show her the film so I would probably start the conversation.
That's kind of what we're hoping, is that you don't have to confront it directly, and maybe you can just see how they respond. And I think you're right, for future generations, for many people, I think a lot of your values, morality, opinions are set at a certain age. There's course you always can change. I'm not saying you can't. But in a weird way, we didn't set out to do this, but thinking now, I think I really did make it for my generation who is just starting to have kids now. My friends and family who are now just having kids, I don't want them to repeat the same cycles that we went through. So the more I can hear, probably the best compliment we got was a friend of mine who I've known for, ages, and he's marched in so many gay pride parades, but he was telling me like, yeah, my kid started playing with his boners, and I was just shoving his hand away because I didn't know how to deal with it, and realizing that even acts like that starts kind of the shame, and how realizing that having fun, pleasuring your own body is actually quite innocent and quite loving and lovely. And not something to be afraid of, and that's just been something I think gives me a little hope.
One of the things I want to highlight. So before I highlight this, though, that's my mom that's commenting now that says that she's not having sex. I just wanted to put that out there.
Does she want to be having sex though? Is this a choice or?
Yes. So does she want to call herself out? I'm gonna call you out for you, Mom. There you go.
Do we need to be helping her right now? Is that?
But so and funny story though, maybe she's dating a new guy, but they've been dating for a couple of years now, things like that. But I had bought her a red door gift for her and her new boyfriend. And I keep saying new boyfriend, but they've been together for a couple of years and things like that, maybe like 2 years and whatever. And so it was like a nice, sexy, like lingerie type set. Like, and I may have gotten her like some edible panties and stuff like that, and whatever. And so her boyfriend asked her, is that not weird for your son to be buying you stuff like that and whatever? And me and my mom have a really good relationship, so like we could talk about any and everything and things like that and whatever. She was supportive in any and everything that I have done and things like that. Of course we had a rocky road in the beginning, but we learned together and we educated ourselves together and things like that. And that was one of the things that I really, really loved about my mom, is that, we was able to kind of educate each other. But so we have a really, really sister and brother relationship, because again, my mother is a young mom and things like that. And we grew up together and I love that. But she was like, no, that's not weird. Like, that's my son. And he wants me to be sexy and things like that. And so I just kind of found it funny that he, like, thought that was so weird, and whatever. And I was buying it for you, like, bruh, like, But one of the things I wanted to say first and foremost, a lot of times I know that, especially it was in your film, but we've also have said it as well. We hopped on teenage pregnancy. Whenever we're talking about how, the results of not educating kids or properly educating kids around sexual intercourse or sex or things like that, or why you're not in school. But I also want to highlight this. I have to find a way to bring it home. But actually, in the U.S., I think it's 20% of all new diagnoses of HIV also fall under the age of 24. So there is even a bigger, I ain't gonna say bigger, but there's different spectrums of how this affects our youth. Not just teenage pregnancy. We're thinking about females and women, but there's also men that have sex with men, and we're also talking about, so there are other components that are affected and affect our lives and our youth lives when sex is absent in conversation or not being properly taught. I had the opportunity on July the 2nd to go and talk to 30 to 40 high school and middle schoolers, and your film honestly and truly like recharged me first and foremost. It did. Sometimes you kind of work in this field and been in this field and kind of has spewed out so much information to where it's like clockwork and things like that. And like watching your film really, 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 really like recharged. Like, oh, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to reintroduce this and talk about that. And one of the things that your film also touched on that wasn't as big, but it was needed. And Jesse highlighted this for me, was consent. And I think that is, and Jesse and I agree that is something that is often missed when we're talking about sexual education and things like that. Something so small, something so minimal, but something that is so big and in the climate that we live in today. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think, now with the internet, kids they understand how to get pregnant. They understand how to get a disease. They understand how to protect themselves, but they don't understand. And what you need practice with is, how do you actually get the things you want and stop the things you don't? How do you actually, in a moment, and I think the framing right now is so much around, yes, have sex, no have sex, but you're constantly negotiating consent during a sexual act the whole time. And around things you do want to do and want to stop. For me, saying stop or no during a sexual moment, not because it was painful or I didn't trust it, just because it hurt or I was uncomfortable, was something that took me a while to understand how to voice, so I was so scared, I think, of just, being bad at sex. So I think these little minuscule things that kids really, really, really want to know about, how do you actually make this work and have it feel good? That's what we need to be talking about. That's what most of sex education, I think, should be about. But it's hard, and I think But it's something that's worth, I think, really trying to get to.
Chelsea Golden says research shows the comprehensive sex ed delays onset of initial sex experience and lowers the numbers of sexual partners as a youth. I definitely agree with that. And the studies do show that as well. However, we haven't adopted that in our climate yet. So, you know, I do feel like one of the things that I learned as a client at Rain was I was a client here before I was working here, and I had a caseworker that was I considered him as a sex guru. I consider myself a sex guru up until I watched your film.
I'm sure you're great. I'm sure.
But one of the things that he taught me verbally was that until you know your body, nobody can ever have you. No. I'm sorry. I said that backwards. Somebody's echoing. But until you know your body sexually, and after you know your body sexually, nobody can ever have you sexually whipped. Because you know how to please yourself, you know how to maneuver yourself, you know how to angle yourself the right way to get your orgasm and things like that. And I think once I learned that, when he said it, the only time it ever clicked for me that I need to explore my body way more than what I've explored. I need to know myself. I need to know every freckle, every move, every angle, and after I adapted that, my sexual orgasms, my sexual pleasures, how it just like opened up to it is unreal. And I wish there was a way that we could bring that to kids' attention, you know, and things like that, as opposed to trying to scare them off with STDs and STIs and pregnancy. You know, it is a beautiful thing, and it's going to happen, and it can happen. And you can make it beautiful. It's up to you. I just wish that we had, and I know we just tap into the surface of it, but I wish there was a way that we can kind of really teach sexual orgasm and what that looks like and what that means and how to achieve it, without it being so perverted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that the way to teach such a thing is to teach that there's a work around shame just by talking about it in general, because everything we've talked about in this whole session and the whole film comes back to shame, right? And if you remove that, I mean, then people know that they have the platform to explore their bodies and explore relationships and explore sex in safer ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think if someone had just told me very young, like, it's great to masturbate. There's no harm in it. In fact, it's probably the safest sex act you can do. Go at it. You know, I think things might have been a little different. Yeah.
Right. So we touched on it briefly, but sexuality, right? That was also something that reared his head in your film, and how we look at sexuality, how we look at people's sexual identity, and I think that so many times it's grouped into sex, and it's something that's totally different. But your film also did a good job of breaking it down, especially when the lady was talking about introducing sexual education to a 2-year-old and what that looked like. Introducing them to reintroducing that conversation at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And it can look like this. I wish we could actually build a fucking curriculum off what she said, you know. And
she does have one. She has one. Yeah. That's the sad part. It's there. It's just not being used.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, it's interesting. We didn't put it much this in the film because it would require so much more time and its own film, like queer, kink, all the kind of different things that people think about. But I think, you know, one thing that I am coming around to is, you know, these categories, they're useful in many ways, but they are trying to impose joints on a human phenomenon that really doesn't have joints. You know, we are a lot of things. We're men and women. We're gay and straight. You know, we contain multitudes, right? So I think that's one of the things, and it changes throughout your whole life too, I think. So I think the conversations that we have at a very young age that are very honest and open about the wide, spectrum, the thinking as non-binary as possible, and not coming to any concrete answers, right? Not having to declare a specific answer of this is who I am and this is who I'll be for the rest of my life. The more we can definitely think about sexuality as a playground rather than as a distinct identity, I think will make us all happier in the long run.
Yeah, because you definitely ended your film and said, and I quote, I may be misquoting, but I want to quote, and you said, there are 1.3 billion people in the world. There are 1.3 different sexualities in the world. And I thought that stuck with me the most out of the whole entire thing, is because you often time are trying to fit into a box that somebody else created of what you are, what you like, this, you like this, you like that, and things like that. And you can be so fluid, and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that I like about myself, is that I don't like to be in the box either. I like to be fluid.
It's fun, right? It's fun to play with.
I'm all over the place.
Exactly. And we should have fun with that. And that's what I kind of wanted the film to show, that it's not scary, but if you just think of it differently, it's actually, how we play as human adults, as humans. So we should lean into that rather than run away from it.
Right. Come to the sandbox.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to forget about this porn conversation. PornHub and its most searched categories. I thought that was so interesting, and how they highlighted it, but it's searched in the United States. And even like the most read states, and what shows up there, like, oh my God, what are y'all doing? And I think it was I don't remember, one of the states that caught my eye that was searching it was I'm not gonna be able to call it back to you. But yeah, some of even the red states were having the most weirdest searches, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
How did you score that damn interview, first and foremost?
It was a lot of work to get that, because I think for good reason, for many reasons. Most companies that traffic, or maybe that's not the best word to use, but that profit off of porn, it's tricky for them. So we weren't allowed to tell where in the world we were. We weren't allowed to show anyone's faces. We had to keep the interview very strictly to what I was most interested in. What are people searching, right? Because no one, like I say in the film, no one's more honest about their sexual desires than when they're typing into a porn search engine, right? So what are people actually looking at? And I wish we could have shown the whole interview, because we go through around the world, all different identities. But kind of just focusing. The main thing I took away was you are not alone. You think that you are the one freak. You are not. There's a community out there for you. My favorite was there's a whole My Little Pony. They call themselves bronies. My Little Pony porn community. It's apparently very big in Russia. But it's the second you can think of it, someone else is fantasizing about it. And it's not so much am I a freak, am I not, is can I find the people that I can play with around this one thing, and so going to PornHub, I have a lot of ethical questions that I struggle with when it comes to how porn is produced. I have a lot of questions about how porn is used as sex education in many cases. I have a lot of questions about my own relationship to mainly jerking off to non-Asian Americans, if that makes sense. There's a lot of different, my relationship with my own body, how that's been warped by porn. But for the most part, I think I've come around to, it's just, if you can think about porn as a fantasy, like you're watching a superhero movie, or you're watching The Fast and the Furious, or you're watching any different types of entertainment that plays with taboo and plays with the boundaries of morality and plays with power dynamics and enjoy it. Why is sex the one place where it's wrong? And I think that's really helped me really expand and really explore how porn can be incorporated into a healthy sex life, and maybe even incorporated into a relationship that help open the door of talking about something that maybe you're too scared to talk about head on, but you can watch a porn together and discuss how that made them feel. So porn, I think, is something that, since humans have been around, we've been drawing pictures of dicks, right? So it's something that we must live with. It's who we are. We love to see naked people going at it. So let's make sure we're doing it in the right way rather than saying it's wrong.
Right. There was one thing that I disagree with that was said on your film was that when it comes down to anal sex, it's going to be poop.
Well, it's a risk. It's always a risk, right? It's always
there is a risk.
It's just how it's saying, yeah.
There is a risk. No, I thought that was funny because when she said it, I was like, oh, that is so true.
Yeah.
You often forget about. I ain't gonna say you often forget about it, but it's always something that you don't. I don't know. It's a. I'm not gonna say you often forget about it, but it's something that you kind of forget that is there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, until you don't. Until
you don't. Until you are surprised, right? But I thought that was interesting that she said that, and it was fun. One of the things that I want to ask you is, throughout this whole process of making this film, what did you learn from this?
Oh, I mean, first and foremost, that my parents are much more open and honest, and in a weird way, our relationship is now, we don't talk about sex that much. It doesn't come up that much. But now knowing that I could talk to them about it, I think has in a weird way lowered some of the weird boundaries and barriers I had placed that didn't need to be there. So now our conversations, I mean, they're still very parent-child conversations, I think. Yeah. But instead of just talking about how the weather was for 10 minutes, we talk about how we're actually feeling, and how the day is actually going on a much more deeper, intimate level. It's all baby steps. I'm not, it's not like we're all of a sudden best friends, but we're more friends than we were a year ago. We're actually, our relationship is becoming more of where I actually consider them to be like confidants in a weird way. And that's been the best kind of thing that I've learned from the process, that it is possible. Again, totally dependent on the relationship and culture and background that you have. And not all parents are the same and not all relationships are the same. But that's been the great thing. And also just that, again, I'll just keep repeating that listening. Like I struggle with that. I clearly put myself on camera because I like to hear and see myself talk. But understanding that there's so much more power in, you don't have to agree with them. In fact, you can disagree 100%, but the empathy, the power of empathy and being listened to, opens up something, I think, that I didn't really give much credence because I think I was so angry, but that it really just makes the world so much more interesting, and being able to have all sorts of different types of connections with all sorts of different people, even if you don't like that person, has just made me so much more open to all things in my life. The way I think about it is, the more I can see the sexual beauty in every single human, the more I can see it in myself. And that's been something that I continually am working on. But the more energy, time, and the more I prioritize that, the more it's paid off in my own personal life.
Good. I like that. There's an echo somewhere. So one of the things that before I end this with this last question, do anybody else have anything that's on their heart and is dying and things like that? So I'm about to shake the table. No? I guess I gotta shake the table. No, I'm just joking. I don't have anything to shake the table with. I just like applying the pressure. But I do want to thank you for coming on and having this conversation with us. I think that again, the film was phenomenal. If audience that are watching, if you have not watched it yet, I am tasking you to go and watch it. You will not be disappointed, first and foremost. It's not an ordinary documentary. It ain't boring. It's going to have you on the edge of your seat the whole time. I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk to the people and ask more questions my damn self, and it gives you exactly what I think it does its job, which is starting the conversation. It gives you a starting point and it gives you a foundation Where you go with that is where you choose to go with it, but it does give you that foundation to start the conversation. So they have been, Lou, Alex has been very generous to give us some free tickets. We've been advertising it for the last week or so, and we still have some available. So if you have not watched this film yet, you still have opportunity to watch it until June 27th.
Sunday, yeah, till Sunday.
To Sunday. So if you haven't watched it yet, please go and watch it. And feel free to hit us up, and ask questions and talk about it and things like that. This would not be the last conversation that we have surrounding this. We talk about this every single week, or something around sexuality and sexual experience, and sexual health rather, every week. So feel free to let us know what you think about the film, and we'll be happy to pass that information along to Alex and things like that. So without further ado, if anybody don't have anything else to say, thank you, Alex, for coming on and
thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I did mean so much that you got something out of it. Truly, it's crazy.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, so Alex, so before you go, we often do this thing every single time to end our Keeping It 100 live. Okay. So, and I want you to do it with us, so you can just watch and then follow suit. Okay.
Okay.
I know you can be sexy.
I'll try.
Before we go there, I do want to let you know that today is Thursday. Karaoke night is happening at Chaser, so make sure if y'all are in the area, go out and support and sing. Get on that mic and have a good time. And hope everybody's getting ready for Pride next month. So it's Pride this month, but Charlotte Black Pride is happening next month in July. So the events are already posted. Please go out and check them out. If you're out of state, go ahead and book your hotel. Get it now, because hotels are selling out immediately. Also, we are doing the takeover. So remember, we used to do the pool parties 2 years ago. So Rain has now joined that industry, I guess. So we will be there hosting the takeover pool party that is happening Pride weekend that Sunday at the La Meridian Hotel. Same place, same time. We want you naked. We want you raw. Come. Have a good time. Drink.
This is not just an all-male event, please.
Yes, it is not. Thank you, Sean. It's not just an all-male event as well. All walks of life is welcome and enjoy and things like that. We used to have a beautiful time 2 years ago when they was doing it. So please come out. And again, once time comes flowing in, we'll start posting flyers for it and things like that. But you can already see the invite on Facebook. So y'all ready?
Ready.
This the last time y'all gonna do that one time.
Oh my God, Bryce not here. I think I had his glasses so he can put it back.
And always remember, getting tested is sexy.
Bye. Bye.